In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 lessons that I learned from analyzing Illenium's new album, Fallen Embers. If you are interested in leveling up your music production skills or learning a few tricks from the pros, you might find some useful tips in this video, so let's go! So if you take a look at Crazy Times and Brave Soul, for example, they are very emotional and powerful songs that builds the tension for the whole duration of the song and only releases with one huge drop at the end. Their first drop is more like a chorus with a bit more energy, more drums, but nothing too excited and powerful. I personally really like this idea of arrangement. Which leads to the second point, as I noticed that Illenium likes to keep his breakdowns or verse quite long. He still managed to keep it interesting by having a lot of different parts and variations. He achieves that by adding or removing elements, and that is how he keeps it moving forward and build the tension during his songs. If we take a look at Sideways and Crazy Times, the first chorus or drop don't happen before 1.5 minutes, which is unusual these days, but because there was 3 different parts before with each a difference in dynamics and elements, it doesn't really bother us and just keep us wanting for more. Now, speaking of dynamic range, this is another thing that we can learn from Crazy Times or Brave Soul. The dynamic range is the difference between the quietest and loudest parts in the song, and you can see that there is a lot of variations in these two songs. Having a good dynamic range is what helps you keep the listener interested during your song, so it's not so flat and boring. So this one might come as a shocker for you, but yes, it is the case. In Heavenly Side, there isn't any synth, or maybe one, and that is Illenium himself that said it during his after-party livestream. Huge synths are usually the main element when it comes to feature bass, but in his song Heavenly Side, he barely used any, but instead used a lot of distorted electric guitars and pianos. I guess that the key to take here is to just experiment and try other instruments as your main element and grabbing some influence from other music styles. On the vocal side of things, I've noticed that he uses a lot of voice treatments and vocoder to add variations in the second parts of his songs. In a lot of them, once the second part starts, you can hear a vocoder under the main vocals or double vocals on the side very low and treated in a different way. It felt to me like he duplicated the vocals, separated them in two, lowered the volume, added a slight variation in the pitch, and just put them on the sides. I found that to be very clever to add some variation to the vocals and give something new to your ear to listen to. This one I didn't really get from his album, but more from one of the livestream production that he did on Twitch with Set the Sky when starting Crazy Times. They both started to grab some samples of drum loops and just selected and isolated the parts and sounds that interested them, and then added them back together to make their own drum loops. I know it is easier to just take a drum loop on Splice, but by doing a bit more effort, you make sure that you stay unique and original, so learn from them and make your own drum loop. In Sideways and Crazy Times, they added a cheering stadium ambience loop. In a live with Nurko, I learned that this was actually the secret tip from Nurko that he uses in all of his songs, and that Illenium learned that trick from him actually. I found that it really adds a sort of excitement and authenticity to the song, so that's a quick idea here for you. Illenium uses a lot of dreamy, pitched vocal chops like these. In one of his live streams, he showed his process to do it, and he very often uses his own old vocals. The trick is that he reverses the vocal and adds some effects to it like reverb, delay, filters, and then just searches for interesting parts to use. He then chops all the parts that he likes and creates a new vocal chop melody with it. Another thing he does is to have 2 vocal chops. One that is very ambient and barely hearable, and the other one that is treated with a bit of a robotic style to it. Then he mixes the two together to get that nice dreamy vocal chop result. If we look at You and Me and Fragments, we can see that right after the intro, he goes straight to a sort of chorus or MIDI drop to instantly tell you that this song is going to be fire. Not even 20 seconds in the song that the energy is already there. I think I might try this arrangement for my next song, it would be a good change. Illenium's songs are very powerful or emotional, but also very full. And by that I mean that there is always something to keep your ear interested and busy. I've noticed a couple of things that he does that could be useful to know for your next songs. First, he uses a lot of reverse piano or reverse guitars. It is quite hearable in Blame Myself intro, but I know he also uses that in Crazy Times. And I don't mean to use this just to transition from one part to another, but actually in between chords by reversing the whole chord progression and then using volume automation to intensify some parts more than others. I find that it adds some nice movement to the chord progression. He also adds some sliding guitar sounds like this one in Heavenly Side, to add more detail and hint that a guitar is coming up in the song. And then you also have some additive muted guitar loops or vocal chops here and there in between sentences, effects, fills, etc. The list goes on. Now this bonus tip was taught to me by my good friend TG Rage. He noticed that Illenium often changes chord progression inside the same song, which is strongly influenced by pop music. If we take Brave Soul for example, there is 3 different chord progressions. The first chord progression is used for the intro, verse and pre-chorus, the second covers the chorus, and the third one covers the pre-drop, build-up and drop. Doing this is a great way to achieve a very interesting song for the ears as it always changes and brings something different. So obviously there is way more that we could learn from Illenium, but I hope that those analyses and tips will help you for your next productions. If you want to learn more about future bass, you can watch this video next where I break down my song Still Alive. But in the meantime, keep learning and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Let's go! I'm going to share with you 10 tips, 10 lessons. Good start! That I learned from analyzing, oh that's gonna be tough. From analyzing Illenium's last album. Oh my god. Alright, let's try that again. One more time. Analyzing Illenium's last album. My god, it's so hard. Can I do it in French? Oh boy.